Yo, what's up guys? It's Reed Young, aka Shooter here. I'm going to be going over a 6 max no limit hand where we're playing 1-2 no limit. And we have the button. We get ace queen suited, which is pretty sweet. We're against an opponent where we don't really know if he's a fish or a regular, but you can see right away that he has a not full stack size to start the hand, so that's usually indicative of a weaker player. We decide to re-raise. We actually have ace queen of clubs here, so we do flop two overcards along with the nut flush draw. So monster flop for us. We're completely content getting all in. Basically anything you can have isn't going to have us in that bad of a shape. So I think it's a fantastic hand to have in your continuation betting range for that reason. We get check two, and we decide to bet just a little bit over half pot, which I think is a good bet size. Against an unknown or against anyone really, we could expect to be check raise bluff here a decent amount of the time. From a good player, just because this board is pretty unlikely to hit our range overall. So basically someone looking to get in a check raise bluff here would be assuming that we as the button re-raiser would be continuation betting here a bit too often without the intention of coming over the top all in. So if we did have a hand like king queen offsuit, maybe he thinks we'd bet folded on the flop, or something like ace king, or just a random bluff like 4 or 5 of diamonds. So, a check raise bluff for the cutoff should work out here. And to combat that, we definitely want to add some hands to our air range, or our semi-bluffing range that do pretty well against the check raise, because we're not going to have queens plus every time here, or I guess jacks plus, maybe nines plus every time here. So we see bet. We get called, which I think is actually a bit stronger than being check raised when you're facing a lot of people, especially people who are just playing their cards and not necessarily like the situation. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the effective stacks and the pot to stack ratio, it's a pretty easy check raise or check raise all in with a decent amount of our opponent's semi bluffs. And I think he could expect to almost show an immediate profit against a lot of people, in addition to the equity he will have when called. So for him to not check raise here, it really smells like a weak made hand trying to keep the pot small, which, I say it feels like a trap, just because trying to keep the pot small with such a small pot to stack ratio is kind of just a fool's errand. I mean, you're out of position in a re-raised pot and a drawy board where the texture of the board is going to change on, I guess about like 80% of outcomes, from the turn and river. You're going to have either the flush draw getting there or an overcard coming. So it's going to be very tough to check call down with a hand like 9-8 of diamonds without improving on the turn. So when you check calls, I think tens are somewhat likely, although a lot of people do 4-bet that pre-flop, especially given these positions and that we're only 100 big blinds effective. And then, there's the occasional hand like ace-jack, king-jack, and maybe some of the weaker draws he didn't feel like he could check raise profitably. So on the overall, I think we need to have some bluffs in our continuing range, and ace-queen suited is about as good as it gets, because we do pretty well against all of those hands, even if they do try to check call us again. So if you can imagine, if our entire range was value hands, and then combo club draws, we would be doing pretty well against an opponent trying to check call us, and it would be a pretty terrible spot for him to check call a hand like Jack X if he's only expecting to see a flush draw and 2 overs with a bunch of equity, or at least 1 over with a lot of equity, or a hand that already hasn't beat where he's going to be a bigger underdog. So in order to get value, we need to be bluffing, and I think this is a perfect hand to do it with, should we not improve on the turn. So the turn is a blank, basically as blank as it gets, and we get led into, and now the read on this guy's hand range I think changes significantly, in that we can take out all the crappy draws he would have, because I don't think any of them play this way. If he is check calling a draw, I think it's with the intention of check folding or maybe check shoving the turn most of the time, because leading like this just opens him up to getting jammed on by a lot of better hands and effectively wasting his equity, and it kind of negates his ability to gain any folding equity along with his draw. So that's a lot of the power of a draw in these situations, and especially when the pot to stack ratio is so small, you definitely want to be trying to raise your draws and balancing that with value hands. So he leads into us. This really stinks, like a Jack X type hand, and I think really the only play here is to call. Sometimes he'll give us his stack on a club river, and sometimes he'll put us on some sort of draw like king queen or something like that. If like the 2 of clubs is the river, so we can get check called fairly widely. Additionally, he probably doesn't put us on that many like queen x or ace x hands. So if the river were a queen or an ace, I think we can get stacks in some of the time and have the best hand as well. So I don't think any of our outs are really dirty given this action, except for maybe the ace some of the time against ace jack, and maybe the queen against queen jack, or some other hands. But I don't think shoving is ever going to fold out a pair, which it's basically the only better hand. So I think we're looking at Jack X or better here, and shoving would be a pretty terrible play. But calling, we're getting 3-to-1 odds immediately, and we do have some river implied odds, so I think it's a pretty good play. Occasionally we could have the best hand. So then on the river we get check 2, and I think this is just a spot where you should be giving up a lot of the time, because given the way the hand played out, it's just such a funky line for the cutoff to take that I don't think he's ever checking a made hand here with the intention of check folding. And if he doesn't have a made hand, then we win because we have ace queen high, and we just don't expect him to ever have ace king offsuit and do this, because that just makes absolutely no sense. So I think we just take the showdown. Maybe we win about 5 or 10% of the time, maybe slightly less, but I think the main point is that after check calling the flop and leading, he just about always has a made hand, and we're not going to get him to fold it by shoving on the river. But if you guys could hit the like button on this video, it would really help me out a lot. And if you want to subscribe, there's an annotation on the top left, so you can just click that and check out the channel where I review hands like this and talk about other spots. So if you guys want to improve your game and talk with me in the comments section, or just say what's up wherever, I will get back to you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you have any questions in the forum or in the YouTube comments. Later.